So that if we choose to eradicate ourselves from this earth, and whatever it means, the earth goes nowhere. And in time, it will regenerate, and all the lakes will be pristine. The rivers, the waters, the mountains, everything will be green again. It'll be peaceful. There may not be people, but the earth will regenerate. And you know why? Because the earth has all the time in the world, and we don't.
Who are we? Are we novelty-seeking, hedonistic, selfish individuals?
Stupid, greedy creatures who, if left to our own devices, would devolve into violence and chaos?
By 2050, there will be some 9 billion people on the globe.
The joy of having a new child, and on the other side, all the worries and the fears.
You realize that you're someone else's protector.
We are scared. We are scared seeing the present. We are scared for the future.
I do worry for the baby now, as the future, what's going to hold for them.
We are now at a time when decisions must be made if we wish to evolve from our present culture of scarcity, waste, and environmental destruction. At present, we are left with very few alternatives, since we're on a collision course of our own making. Answers from yesterday are no longer relevant. None of the world's economic systems, socialism, communism, fascism, or the free enterprise system have eliminated the problems of elitism, nationalism, racism, and most of all, scarcity. These are all based primarily on economic disparity. When money is used to regulate and distribute resources for profit, and people and nations are out for themselves, they will seek advantage at any cost. They do this by maintaining a competitive edge, or through military intervention. War represents the supreme failure of nations to resolve their differences. From a strictly pragmatic standpoint, it is the most inefficient waste of lives and resources ever conceived.
Sometimes we think that it's easier to make war than to work to prevent it or to clean up after it.
The military is a major player in terms of environmental outcomes.
The environment is war's silent casualty. When we talk about the costs of war, we rarely focus on what happens to the land, the animals. We rarely focus on that which sustains human life.
We're completely out of sync now in defining threats to our security. At one time, the principal threats were military. They no longer are. They're now environmental.
In the Homeland Security Department, they're thinking about vulnerability and preparedness. We just haven't made the same commitment yet in climate change, but we really need to do that.
At the moment, it's as if we're sleepwalking into disaster. We can't afford to sleepwalk into the future. We must take decisions and action which create a world that we want our children and their children to grow up in.
is not the only form of violence imposed upon people. There is also hunger, poverty, homelessness, and unemployment. The acceptance of these conditions as expressive of human nature is a myth used to keep things as they are.
In a society which is predicated on competition and really very often the ruthless exploitation of one human being by another, the profiteering of other people's problems, and very often the creation of problems for the purpose of profiteering, the ruling ideology will very often justify that behavior by appeals to some fundamental and unalterable human nature. So the myth in our society is that people are competitive by nature and that they're individualistic and that they're selfish. The reality is quite the opposite. We have certain human needs. The only way that you can talk about human nature concretely is by recognizing that there's certain human needs. We have a human need for companionship and for close contact, to be loved, to be attached to be accepted, to be seen, to be received for who we are. If those needs are met, we develop into people who are compassionate and cooperative and who have empathy for other people. So the opposite that we often see in our society is in fact the distortion of human nature, precisely because so few people have their needs met, that lead to certain traits if they are met and a different set of traits if they're denied.
Nei, noen har stjålet den.
Nei. Hvor da?
Nedi der. Så jeg er på klassetur, og så sa læreren at jeg skulle møte henne her.
Vet du har ingen telefonnummer til læreren da?
Nei.
Eller så kunne vi ha ringt.
Ja.
Er du der?
Nei, jeg er veldig kald.
Det er kaldt?
Jeg tar skjerfen litt rundt deg.
Ja.
Så det hjelper litt.
Ja.
Ja.
Kom an.
Du har vel kalt det?
Ja. Tusen takk. Hæ? Å, tusen takk.
Hvilken klasse var det hvilken skole er det du gikk på?
Ramberg.
Ramberg?
Vi er fra Moss.
Fra Moss?
Å, tusen takk.
We are not born with greed, envy, hatred, or bigotry. Our behavior and values are reflective of the culture we are exposed to. Social and environmental problems will remain insurmountable as long as few nations control most of the Earth's resources, and the bottom line is profit over the well-being of people. Putting profit first results in unnecessary suffering and aberrant behavior prevalent today. Many people feel that we need the rule of law to eliminate our problems. We have many laws, thousands upon thousands of them, but they are constantly being broken. Paper proclamations and treaties do not alter the facts of scarcity, deprivation, and insecurity. Maybe what is needed are ethical people in government who will work towards everyone's well-being. But even if the most ethical people were elected to high positions and we ran out of resources, there would still be lying, cheating, stealing, and corruption. It's not ethical people that are needed, but rather a way of intelligently managing the Earth's resources for everyone's well-being. Let's examine our social arrangements further. To maintain our economy, products must continuously be sold. To assure this, they are deliberately designed to wear out and break down. Maybe you've noticed this usually happens right after the warranty expires. This corrupt practice is referred to as planned obsolescence, which is the conscious withdrawal of efficiency. This results in a tremendous waste of resources and energy. We are plundering the planet for profits. If you think about it, it isn't a job people want, but access to what their paycheck will bring. Money does not represent anything real, and there's no gold, silver, or resource to back it up. You can't eat money or build a house of it. It's not even related to our real capacity to produce goods and services on this planet. The monetary system has been handed down from centuries ago, and we continue to use it without questions. Considering the damage already done to the environment, we are rapidly approaching a point of no return, where nature will dictate the course. If we want to make it through these turbulent times, we must be able to adapt to change. All things change, including our social systems. Albert Einstein stated, "We cannot solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them." Earth is still abundant with resources. Our practice of rationing resources through monetary control is no longer relevant and is actually counterproductive to our very survival. Today, we have highly advanced technologies, but our social and economic system has not kept up with our technological capabilities, which could otherwise easily create a world of abundance for all, free of servitude and debt. Either we continue as we have, with outmoded social customs and habits of thought, thereby threatening our future, or we apply a more appropriate set of values, relevant to a sustainable society, with more opportunity and freedoms. How can this be possible? There is not enough money to feed or house all people on this planet, let alone accomplish these more ambitious ends. But Earth has more than enough resources to meet the needs of all people, but only if managed intelligently. A social system can be designed so that all can live fully and constructively if the powers of science and technology are directed toward human and environmental concern and overcoming the artificial scarcities of our debt-based monetary systems. All people, regardless of political philosophy, social customs, or religious differences, ultimately depend upon the same resources: clean air and water, arable land, medical care, and a relevant education. The human species is a single family, and the world is home to everyone, neither nations nor people can coexist separately any longer. Some question what would happen to incentive if needs were met without our having to work to attain them. The question assumes humans have no desires beyond basic needs. If that were true, there would be no inventors, writers, or teachers. People work with passion on the things that interest and challenge them. Let's enable all people to have the opportunity to partake in the greatest challenge one can have, improving our world for everyone. Individuality will be emphasized rather than uniformity. This social arrangement will generate a new incentive system that values the protection of the environment and social concern, rather than the shallow, self-centered goals of wealth, property, and power. Motivation and incentive exist when people have meaningful tasks. True growth and development occur when people are involved in creative, challenging, and constructive endeavors.
Explore the mysteries of science, the marvels of human creation, the wonders of our planet, and the enchantment of the arts.
However, motivation and incentive die in the daily grind of boring and repetitive jobs required to earn a paycheck. Our entire infrastructure must be redesigned and operated as coherent, integrated total systems. This means we must consider our entire global community as one unit that includes everyone and plan accordingly. Only in this way can we use our technology to overcome resource shortages, provide universal abundance, and protect the environment. Today, more than half our population lives in cities that are polluted, dangerous, and waste energy. Without a vision of what the future can be, a nation is bound to repeat past errors over and over again. There's no need for the use of polluting hydrocarbons any longer. Pollution will be a thing of the past. We could power the earth on clean energy and enable all people to enjoy a very high standard of living for thousands of years to come. This new lifestyle, while providing leisure and recreation, would also enhance knowledge and creativity for everyone. The measure of success would be the fulfillment of one's personal interest, rather than the acquisition of wealth and self-centered goals. With education and resources made available, there would be no limit to the human potential. Everyone will have the freedom to pursue whatever constructive field of endeavor he or she chooses, without the economic limitations that we face today.
Sometimes people use the environment and the world as an excuse for them to say, okay, yeah, it's not a good place to bring up a child.
The world needs more good guys, and I like to think our baby will be one of the good guys.
But we have to change for them first.
We might not see it,
we
but
won't
maybe
see it,
our great-grandchildren
will see it.
Great-great-grandchildren.
The way the characters in this story, how the story pans out, is based on how we behave in the story. So, yeah.
We need to protect our earth.
Now, as you're coming down the final stretch, you're racing towards the finish, and there is the stone wall, and you're not pulling your horse. You're not stopping. You're in fact accelerating. I said, now, that's the way I see the use of what you call resources. You're using them faster than they're reproducing. And you're headed towards that disaster, and none of you are pulling your horse. Now, to take the example of a car race, they have a yellow flag. when there's an accident or something, a yellow flag comes out, everybody gets into line, they slow down, and they have sort of a common sense about that, at least. I said, do you have a concept of a yellow flag? Is there a yellow flag amongst your ideas or your thinking? And one of the gentlemen, and they were all men, he said, you know, he said, I understand what you're saying, but to answer your question, no, we can't. We can't pull our horse, as you say, because, he said, we have to show a profit. As a CEO, I must show a profit. If I don't show a profit, he said, I'm fired. Simple as that. I'm out of a job. I have to show a profit. I said, to who? He said, to you, the stockholder. I said, are you married? He said, yes, I am. I said, do you have children? He said, yes, I do. I said, do you have any grandchildren? He said, I have two boys. I said, when do you cease to be a CEO and become a grandfather? There was a lot of silence there because that was a moral question. And if you don't have a moral question in your governing process, you don't have a process that's going to survive. That's the governing law, the moral question. You must have a moral society, or you won't have any. He couldn't answer the question, and neither could anyone else, because it was a moral question. That's what we have to get back to. We're moving in a very direct line to that stone wall. I do not believe personally that we have passed the point of no return, but we're approaching it. We're approaching it. And every day that you don't do what's right is a day that you've lost an option. And you're losing your options every day.
We have cashed out prosperity, almost literally in terms of money and economic growth. And we've grown our economies so much that we now stand in a real danger of undermining hope. Running down resources, cutting down rainforests, spilling oil into the Gulf of Mexico, changing the climate. Caught in a kind of trap. It's a dilemma of growth. We can't live with it, we can't live without it. But the materiality matters too, because in every society that anthropologists have looked at, material stuff operates as a kind of a language of goods, a symbolic language that we use to tell each other stories. Stories, for example, about how important we are. Status-driven, conspicuous consumption thrives from the language of novelty. Adam Smith, 200 years ago, spoke about our desire for a life without shame. In his day, what that meant was a linen shirt. And today, well, you still need the shirt, but you need the hybrid car, the HD TV, 2 holidays a year in the sun, the netbook, an iPad, the list goes on. Even if we don't want them, we need to buy them, because if we don't buy them, the system crashes. Who are we? Are we these novelty-seeking, hedonistic, selfish individuals? Or might we actually occasionally be something like the self depicted in Rembrandt's lovely sketch here? These tensions have deep evolutionary roots. So selfish behavior is adaptive in certain circumstances, fight or flight. But other regarding behaviors are essential to our evolution as social beings. And perhaps even more interesting from our point of view, another tension between novelty-seeking behaviors and tradition or conservation. Novelty is adaptive when things are changing and you need to adapt yourself. Tradition is essential to lay down the stability to raise families and form cohesive social groups. So here, all of a sudden, we're looking at a map of the human heart. And it reveals to us suddenly the crux of the matter. What we've done is we've created economies. We've created systems which systematically privilege, encourage one narrow quadrant of the human soul, and left the others unregarded. And in the same token, the solution becomes clear, because this isn't, therefore, about changing human nature. It isn't, in fact, about curtailing possibilities. It is about opening up. It is about allowing ourselves the freedom to become fully human. Recognizing the depth and the breadth of the human psyche, and building institutions to protect Rembrandt's fragile altruist within. We need the economy to reconceive investment. Only now, investment isn't going to be about the relentless and mindless pursuit of consumption growth. Investment has to be, in the new economy, protecting and nurturing the ecological assets on which our future depends. It has to be about transition. It has to be investing in low-carbon technologies and infrastructures. We have to invest in the idea of a meaningful prosperity, providing capabilities for people to flourish. And of course, this task has material dimensions. It would be nonsense to talk about people flourishing if they didn't have food, clothing, and shelter. But it's also clear that prosperity goes beyond this. It has social and psychological aims: family, friendship, commitment, society, participating in the life of that society. And this, too, requires investment. Investment, for example, in places where we can connect, places where we can participate, shared spaces, gardens, concert halls, public parks, libraries, museums, places of joy and celebration, places of tranquility and contemplation. Prosperity is a shared endeavor. Its roots are long and deep. Its foundations exist already inside each of us. What we're doing here is we're taking a few simple steps towards an economics fit for purpose. And at the heart of that economics, we're placing a more credible, more robust, and more realistic vision of what it means to be human.
There is not just one big meaning of life. Each one of us is unique. The time to be happy is now. And the way to find meaning in life is to get on and live it as fully and as well as we can.